Hello, good morning. I'm Alarcio and I'll be reporting to you the administering and planning activities by 12 and also set goals and goal settings by 9. So here in Proverbs chapter 29 verse 18 says that where there is no revelation, the people cast off restraint, but happy is he who keeps the law. A vision also is a mystical happening dream in the hearts of God's servants by the Spirit. So it is not planned and it is God's vision. Vision has three dimensions. So we call this number one is inward evaluation. Number two is outward consideration. And lastly is the practical application. So 7 activities that need to be considered each plan. Number one is forecasting. Number two is establishing objectives. And number three is setting policies. Next is procedures and outlining programming and establishing schedules. And lastly, this is one of the important things, creating budget. So we need to, in having these planning activities, we have an strategic plan. So meron pong dalawang bagay na division ng plan po na to. Number one is the long-range plan. So it is developed and provide a broad overarching concept for carrying out the mission of the church or organization. And then short-range plan. So annual plans, it is an annual plans because they are developed to be implemented within a year program. So we need to also set goals. If we have plans, we also need to set goals and have these goals action. So what are we going to do? How are we going to achieve it? Paano natin ma-achieve yung mga plans natin, even yung mga goals natin? In Philippians chapter 3 verse 14 says that I press on toward the goal. This is what Paul says. He is pressing toward the goal. What is goal? A goal is a numerical version of a purpose. Good goal should be smart. So we have criteria for smart goals. Number one is, we have definition here, yung pong word na smart. Smart is, unang-una ito po ay, specific with actions. Next is, it should be measurable. Number 3, aggressive yet attainable. And then, relevant and even realistic. Lastly, time specific and time frame. So ito po yung mga kailangan po natin in having goals. So why we need to set goals and why we have to make actions sa ating pong mga goals. Goals can be short term or long term. So number one, this is the reason why we need to set our goals. Number one is to make purposes possible. And then to save even resources in attaining the mission of the church. To serve as a tool for stretching a church to reach its full potential. And then to even motivate the members with measurable milestone for the future. Next is to match our or your church strength with opportunities. And then to guide and cover asset activities. Lastly, it is to convert your purpose into a specific performance target. So here, when we have goals, we should also know how to set goals and even goals action. Number one, we should set a clear goal by answering the following. So what to action? It is what to action. And then second is who is our target. For example, we have to evangelize. This is our goal. So what to evangelize and who, kung sino po yung gusto po nating i-target, like for example, the young people. And next is how many. So we should also indicate how many numbers we are going to evangelize. Then lastly, when. We should set also deadline for our goals so that we can see that it is being accomplished. Number 2, what are the list of activities to reach the goal? And lastly, we should delegate tasks and responsibilities. So in having goals, the person in charge is very important. Person in charge is will be the one to responsible to execute the plan. So who is going to take responsibility and to see to it that our goals are achieved. So the person in charge should be number one, he or she must be or must loves God and is loyal to the church. Next is enthusiastic, excited, and passionate. Number three, authentic, reliable, with integrity, and respected by the people. Number four, dependable, decisive and committed to the ministry, of course. And number five, effective, efficient, and works smart, yet humble. This is very important. He or she works smart, this person in charge, but still humble. And lastly, resilient, persistent, and determined. So, ito po yung, this should be the characters of the person in charge. By the way, person in charge is the most important, one of the most important key to achieve the set plans and even goals. How to keep the person in charge. So it is also needed. So we must see to it that the person in charge, even though there are so many things that he or she is doing, we should assure that we are keeping that person in charge. So number one, it is how to keep the person in charge. Number one, we need to assure the person in charge. We need to assure him or her according to the, especially for the resources of the church, availability of the support of the church, or even the budget of the church. And next is be appreciative. So here we must appreciate their everything that they are doing. When they have wrong, we must correct them humbly and gently. So number three is we keep them by means of developing a system of accountability. Number four, we need to ensure also an objective and evaluation. And lastly, this is the very important thing, finish with recognition. So every task or every goals that are being accomplished, it is one way to keep the person in charge is to give them recognition. Next, we are done in the person in charge. So also in setting goals, we also need to build the budget. So what will it cost to reach the goals, and where will the funds come from? So budget is very important in having goal, especially pag ito po ay project po patungkol po sa in regards to our church. In Deuteronomy chapter 16 verse 17, it says that every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord your God that he has given you. So what is budget? A budget is a financial document used to project future income expenses. The budgeting process may be carried out by the church to estimate whether the church can continue to operate with its projected income and expenses. So before the budget period, we need these three things to do. Number one is we must review requests for funds. Number two, we must review program goals and objective. And number three, evaluate the consistency between program and goals and purposes. So we have also ways to build a budget. So we have 8 here. This is the way to build our budget for our certain goals or plans for those things to be achieved. So number one is we must allow enough time to prepare the budget. For example, we have fundraising for example, we need to buy a drum set for the church. So it is not instant. We need step by step, and we must allow ourselves or our church to have enough time to prepare the budget. Number two, be specific enough on how money will be spent. It is important also. And then number three, calculate the need to spend more money. So in having goals, we also need to calculate the need or the money for to be spent more sa budget po na ito. The number 4, devise a review process for budget requests. Number 5, establish criteria for the appropriate use of church funds. Number 6, forecast funds available to spend. Number 7, guard against extravagant expenses, just like yung mga hindi po kailangan. So let us avoid this thing in building our budget. Lastly, have realistic expectation. So in building the budget, we must also have expectation that we will able to build our budget. And then next is we also need to create calendars for our goals, for our in order to achieve it. Calendars are very important in order para malaman po natin which activities come first in order to reach the goals. So there are 2 types of calendar. Number 1 is tentative calendar. It is a rough draft of the master calendar. Next is the master calendar, where it is the final calendar of the church. It is where anyone can find the events, dates, venues, person in charge, and any pertinent information for a said event. So these are the 2 types of calendar. And then next is meron na po tayo ng planning, we have budget, we have dates. Then what we are going to do now is we need to activate our activities in order para po ito ay masagawa po ng maayos, so that it will not remain in vain. So what process in place to implement the plans? So we have here how to implement our activities. Number 1, just like what I said, activate implementation now. Do it now. Number 2, be persistent and prayerful. So prayer are always with us. I mean, prayer is needed whenever we have plans. Number 3, we must continue monitoring process. Next is we must design a clear vision. So dapat po liwanag po yung vision or yung goals na gagawin po natin for strategic planning implementation process. Number 5, here, we must execute the plan. Number 6, facilitate a regular motivational implementation meeting. So it's also needed a regular motivational implementation meeting, so that when someone is being discouraged in the times of along doing the goals, they must be encouraged also. So after that one, we also have here record. So after everything, record is very important. Record implemented activities. So here there is a question: should we record events? Yes, we should. So what is record? A record is a written document of activities which serves as evidence of past events. So it is important also, very important. Who is responsible for the recording? So mayroon po mga tao na responsible in having records. Number 1, the church secretary. Number 2, the church treasurer. So why we need to keep records? Number 1, we must keep records because it is to evaluate. So we will evaluate the last time, past events, so how we are going to improve the next events, and even the past fundraising, how we are going to raise up more funds. So we are keeping records to evaluate. Number 2, to recall. So it is also important if we have victoriously, for example, if we have victorious fundraising before, we can recall that this past fundraising program, we experienced the Lord and His provision. So etc. etc. And number three, to offer evidence. So, and then to justify future funding. Then to satisfy legal obligations, like for example, if the church receives any income, it should keep records for tax and VAT purposes. Lastly, to preserve historical highlights. So we can do it, like for example, yearly, we can put everything our plans or goals that are being achieved. So it is to be preserved as historical highlights of the church. So here's my conclusion for my report. Planning can be short or long term, but the importance of it is its accomplishment. So whether it is long or short, the important here is it should be accomplished. And then next is when you have plans, you must also have goals. And here I would like to add, if you have goals, you must have a goals action. And lastly, each part and ideas are very important. Detailed and well-planned goals are most closely to accomplish. So this is my report for administering and planning activities and set goals and goals action. Thank you very much and God bless.